Today's Sunday, it's the 20th of November, it's 2022, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of a news update. When we do our walks normally, I fill you in on what news is relevant at the time, but quite often I get interrupted or I forget things, so I thought I'd just put it all together in like a weekly news update. And being British, one of the things that is always in the news is the weather. We've had a fantastic summer. The summer's been really good, really hot, and that carried on well into September. October was the warmest October on record. And right into November, Anita and I went on a staycation. We were here on the island in Majorca. We were swimming in the pool and the weather was brilliant. So that was in November, and we're still in November. It's November the 20th, and as you'd expect, the weather's finally broken. And so news this week is that the first snow has fallen in Mallorca. Yep, snow in Mallorca. Right on the top of the mountains though, well over 1,000 meters. And we've had the first pictures of snow from Puigmayor. That's brought with it as well some lower temperatures down below sea level. And yesterday we were walking around Palma and the temperatures were as low as 16, 17 degrees we saw recorded. So it did actually feel a little bit cooler. I had a message from Geneva where I was told it was much, much colder there. So we should be thankful for small mercies. What did happen though is towards the end of last week was the rain started to arrive. And I'd planned to go into Palma on Friday evening for the first of the light shows, which were to go just before the switching on of the lights for Christmas. But unfortunately the weather was just not good enough. It was raining, and we decided to give that one a miss and go to the repeat performance, which would have been on Saturday the 19th. So we got in the car last night and headed off into Palma. It was only just after 5 o'clock. But as we were driving along the Paseo Maritimo, the heavens opened and decided that that was no condition for me to go out and do any filming. So sorry for a lorry that's just driving up the road. That's our rubbish lorry coming to collect the rubbish. They come every day, 365 days a year. Can you believe that? So even on a Sunday. So we didn't go in to see the lights being switched on yesterday, but we will get back into Palma as soon as possible and have a look at those lights. We probably need to make 2 or 3 trips in because they're spread all over the city, and we want to get it all on film. So the snow falling in Mallorca, it's not unusual. It does happen on a regular basis, and I think pretty much every year we get some snow on the highest peaks. So the lights did go on yesterday, and according to the newspaper, there were quite a few people there. And I've seen a picture of the Borne, which had quite a lot of people down there enjoying the lights as they were switched on. Some news now about the driving licenses. If you're a tourist, there isn't a problem. If you're coming from the UK, you can drive with your British license. You don't need to have an international license. You can drive with your British license. But for people who live here, who are residents here, you have to change your license to a Spanish license, and that means now taking a driving test. Before that, when we were part of the European Union, when the British were part of the European Union, you could just exchange your license for a Spanish one. Well, that all came to an end, and some people missed the deadline. Those people who missed the deadline just cannot drive anymore. Well, the British government, the Spanish government have been in talks for what seems to be a very long time, and those talks now seem to have come to a head, and the decision has been made to allow the British to drive with their British licenses for 6 more months, and you'll be able to exchange your British license for a Spanish license during that period. That hasn't been officially mentioned yet, so if you don't have a Spanish license, then you can't drive yet. Wait for the official, because you could still be stopped, you could still be fined. Another piece of news that's coming is about visas. And there's a new visa starting on January the 1st called the Nomad Visa. And the Nomad Visa will allow those people who can work from home to work from Mallorca. And it lasts for 5 years, so you can come here and rent an apartment and work in the sun, and just as though you're working from home in the UK. So this is for people who are not EU. If you're an EU citizen, you can come and work here anyway, but if you're British, therefore you're not an EU citizen anymore, then you normally would have to have a visa to work here, a full working visa. These new ones are for people who work from home. That is, that their employment comes from outside of Spain. You can't be working for a Spanish company on a nomad visa. You have to be working for your money has to be coming from outside of Spain. But it's a new initiative, and it might bring in quite a lot of people with high incomes who will be spending money here in Mallorca. So that's quite interesting. Also about visas, I've reported in the past about ETIAS. ETIAS is the visa waiver. It's not a visa, it's a visa waiver. And it was supposed to be coming in, well, now I suppose, November of 2022. But that's been delayed, and it now looks as though it's going to be November 2023. So next summer, you don't need the visa waiver. The visa waiver is going to cost you €7, and it will last for 2 years. And it means you don't have to get a full visa, and it means it's going to be much simpler to obtain than a visa. It should all be able to be done online, and for 90-something% of the people, it'll be very, very straightforward. So don't worry about that. It doesn't apply to next summer, and there'll be lots more news about telling you how to get that as the time gets closer to November of 2023. What will affect you, though, or affect a lot of people, from May, I think it is, next year, they're going to be taking your fingerprints if you're coming from outside of the European Union. So for the UK travellers who are coming to Mallorca, you will be having your fingerprints taken. I did mention this in my video yesterday as I was walking around Palma, and I got the comment back saying, well, I'm not coming to Mallorca if they're taking my fingerprints. I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, you won't be able to go anywhere else, not in Europe anyway, because this is a Europe decision. It's not specifically to Mallorca. To go to Italy, to go to France, to go to Greece, you're going to have your fingerprints taken as you enter the country. And I read somewhere it was going to be 4 digits that they're going to take the fingerprints of. And I'm guessing it'll be automatic. It'll be a photo scan of your fingers. I'm not sure. I don't think it'll be the ink and black ink and putting your fingers onto pieces of paper as it used to be. And it's about security. It's so that we know who's coming in and going out of the country. So do be prepared for that. They're talking about long queues. But the good news, I suppose, is that ETIAS is going to be delayed for UK travellers for a little bit of time now. So you don't need to worry about that next summer. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends across the pond there and elsewhere in the world. And Majorca has had in the past a lot of Americans, and still quite a few who've made Majorca their home. And I'm sure they're going to be celebrating on Thursday, Friday, Black Friday, which seems to have started already. I've seen lots of announcements about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and all of that sort of thing. So they're after your money. Announcement in Palma this week about the tram. We're going to have a tram that is going to take you from Plaza España to the airport, or from the airport to Plaza España. It's a 30-minute journey, and the money is coming from the European Union. So the European Union is funding this. It's not going to cost the local government any money. It's coming from Spain, who are getting the funds from Europe. It's going to cost 185 million euros and is due to be completed in 2026. One consequence of that is that roads are going to be changed, parking spaces are going to disappear, and there's going to be a lot of disruption, I think, in Palma and along the route. 2 bridges have got to be built over the motorway, so yeah, there's going to be lots going on. Just let me move out of that sunlight there. And lots more construction work going to be going on in Palma as well. More about that in a moment. Talking of public transport, it's going to be free next year. Free as in €0. Well, at least that is for us locals. For people who live here, for residents, we're going to be able to travel on the bus, on the train, for nothing. It's going to cost a lot of money, that is, to fund, but again, that's coming from central government. It's not coming from our local taxes. So central government's funding this up to €43 million. And to be able to travel free, you're going to need a bus pass or a card. Tourists, I'm afraid, you're still going to have to pay. You won't qualify for the card, so you're going to have to pay to go on the bus. But the idea really is to reduce the congestion that we've been suffering over the last few years, particularly during the summer months when the population of the island doubles and the number of cars on the road increases, and it makes just getting around difficult. Whether it's going to actually help, if we think about this, the buses get very crowded in the summer anyway. So unless they're going to put some more buses on, then the whole thing won't work anyway. So we'll see. But certainly in the wintertime, this is going to be great for people on the island to get about without having to use their cars, and not going to cost them any money. Property's been in the news this week. A Norwegian billionaire, Ivar Erik Tollefsen, has bought the Fortaleza in Poyensa. This is the house, the building, the land that was in The Night Manager. If you watch that series, he paid €62 million for this property, and is probably the most expensive property in the whole of Spain. It was owned actually by a British billionaire named James Lupton, and in the past has been owned by other British millionaires. It's now changed hands, and probably luckily for him, because the property market, according to Hans Lenz of Engels and Volkers, former pupil, there's been a nuclear bomb hitting the property market, because there was a suggestion that non-residents shouldn't be able to buy property in Mallorca unless they'd been living here for 5 years. And that went down like a lead balloon in the British market, and in the Swedish market, and other markets, the German market. Very, very big concern. Some of the property developers have said, well, we're moving out right immediately. And so that would really reduce investment. It was at that point only a suggestion, but it has now gone through Parliament in Madrid and been accepted. So again, we are not quite sure of the consequences of that yet, but it's something to keep an eye on. Close to home for us, on the Paseo Maritimo in Palma, is going to be undergoing reconstruction. It'll be destruction first and then reconstruction, and it's going to be largely pedestrianised. The work on that is due to start in the next month or 6 weeks, but we'll see a lot of changes down there. So we're planning to go down for a walk and have a look to see what it looks like now, and we'll see what the changes are over the next months, and again, this is one that's going to run into years, not just months. Also on the Paseo Maritimo, Tito's. I've often stopped by Tito's. Used to be the famous nightclub of the 1960s where some of the top acts of the world used to come and perform. It then turned into a disco. Was owned by a man named Kursak, who'd been imprisoned for various charges. They were dropped this week. The charges were still some private prosecutions to go ahead. So it's a bit of a controversial place. But Tito's was bought by the Camper Group. Camper Group being the shoes manufacturers in the middle of the island in Inca. But apparently they've sold it now, and it's owned by a disco group, so it's going to be called Leo, L-I-O, Leo, I guess. And they're going to rebuild it and turn it into some posh new nightclub following the Leo in Ibiza, which apparently attracts really quite famous DJs. I'm not very well up on DJs, but Idris Elba, I've heard of, apparently has DJ'd in the Ibiza Leo, and well, maybe that's what's going to be coming here to Mallorca. A disturbing piece of news in the Última Hora this week was that mortality in the Majorca and the Balearic Islands has gone up 400% in 2022. A lot of excess deaths. Apparently so far this year 1,436 people have died, much more than the number that would have been expected. There's still no clear reason or evidence, but lots of speculation. Speculation that many of the people that have died because they'd got diseases which were not being controlled well enough during the pandemic. Some of them had COVID and were suffering from the post-COVID problems. But a lot of research needs to be done to find out what's going on there. Some good news for somebody in Alcudia. The Euromillions, the second prize in the Euromillions, was won in Alcudia, and 245,000 euros. So well done to them. You must be related to me. If you want to make a donation, that would be great. Anita continues to buy the tickets, but we don't win them. Don't win anything. Don't even get a number most weeks. But we'll keep trying. I'm sure Anita will keep trying. On the sports front, well, Mallorca have been doing really well over the last 5 matches. They've won all 5 matches, including beating Atletico Madrid. Fantastic match, 1-0. And we've just won a cup match, so we're down into the next round of the King's Cup here in Spain. And then there was a local derby with a team from Sa Pobla, which was the Agricultural Cups, usually known as the Potato Cup, and we won that as well. So they've gone now 5 games without defeat, 5 games winning, and on a real high. Unfortunately, we're now being interrupted by the World Cup, which starts this evening. We've got a couple of players out there who are going to be representing us, our goalkeeper and Baba for Ghana, and we've got Marco Asensio, who used to play for us, now for Real Madrid, who's representing us in Spain. But it means that Real Mallorca are not going to be playing a match until the new year, effectively. Somewhere around about New Year is when the season kicks off again, and we just hope that they can maintain the momentum and carry on into the new year with the wins that they've been producing. Some really good football, and we're really keen to get going and watching them again. So I started with the weather, so perhaps finish with the weather. It's Sunday, it's the 20th of November. When I started this, it was about 15 degrees, which feels quite pleasant. I'm sitting out on our terrace, just in my shirt, and it feels wonderful. The sun's shining. I've had to move a couple of times because the sun's shining on the top of my head. I've got the shade of our lemon tree. The lemons are just ripening, and it looks as though it's going to be a nice day, though there are a few clouds around. But the weather is a little bit more unsettled now. So that's the news from Mallorca. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye for now.